everybody, and hello new followers. My name is Ailsa. It's really good to have you here. Today I am talking about the books that I am planning to read in November. It has got really cold here in London all of a sudden. I'm snuggled up here in my body warmer as well as my sweater, and I've just put the heating on and it's the middle of the afternoon. So it definitely feels like time to read some more wintry books. And that leads nicely in to the first book that I want to read soon, which is a reread. And it's a reread that I like to come back to at this time of year, and that is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is a young adult book. It is set in a magic school in England, and is about an 18-year-old boy called Simon who is starting his last year at this magic school, and his nemesis Baz. At the beginning of the book, Baz is missing and Simon is very suspicious. He's sure that Baz is up to no good somewhere. It starts about, like the day before classes begin or something like that, and it goes through to just after Christmas Day. So this run up to Christmas time always feels super appropriate to read the book, especially as so much of the action is focused in that later half of the term and leading up to Christmas. So Simon is super suspicious about Baz, but as things go on, it turns out that maybe things weren't quite as Simon thought, and there is more going on than he was aware. There are always comparisons made to Harry Potter with this book, and I would not read it looking for Harry Potter. I don't think you need to be that critical of it. It stands very well in its own right. It's about two 18-year-old boys, it's about friendship, it's about relationships, and about saving the world. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this one, and I highly recommend it if you haven't read it before. The next book to mention is one that I have talked about before in videos as a to-read book, and that is The Watchmaker of Filigree Street. So I'm just going to touch on this one briefly today to say I have read the first couple of chapters, and I am hoping to get this finished soon. So far, a man has been left a little pocket watch. I think we're in the 1800s? Yes, 1883, and the main character has been left a pocket watch. Meanwhile, in Oxford, we've had one chapter narrated by a young woman who I think has she's got something, and I'm forgetting what it is now, that I think is made by the same person as has made this mysterious watch. There are some hints that there is more to this watch and the maker than our narrators are aware of yet, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about it as we get into that. Next, I have a book that I got out the library, and that is It Only Happens in the Movies by Holly Bourne. I've not actually read anything by Holly Bourne, but loads of my London-based friends who read a lot of YA really like her books and have recommended them for a while, so I thought it was about time that I had a look at one of them. So I'm hoping to get through that fairly quickly as well. It's another young adult book, and this one is quite short looking. It's about 400 pages, but I think it's going to be quite a quick read that is contemporary young adult. The next book to mention is one that I have had for a couple of months, and I'm really excited to get into, and that is The Queens of Innis Lear by Tessa Gratton. Apparently this is a retelling of King Lear, but focused on the women involved. And set in a slightly different time period. I have read the start of King Lear when I saw this because I thought, I'd better find out a bit about that. But I've also heard people say that you don't really need to know the King Lear story, and I've read the first couple of chapters of this now. It seems very atmospheric, and from what I've read so far, I do think it's going to be quite different from King Lear, but we shall see, and I'm really excited to get into this. I'm loving the tone of voice so far. It's very mysterious. It's a rural little island somewhere. It's quite a little fantasy touch going on there, but it's very atmospheric, and I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into that. It's another quite big book. It's quite a tall book, and it's also quite thick. There's almost 600 pages in this one, so that might be quite a long thing for me to read. Next is a book that I picked up fairly recently when I was shopping with my friend Jean, and that is The Bourne Season by Samantha Shannon. This has been around for a few years now. It's part of a series. It's the first book in a series, and the author is still writing the book. I hadn't realised that the author is fairly young. I think she's probably a similar age to me, or a couple of years older, but kind of around that. And I saw her read from her latest book recently, and it sounded really interesting. Like, She seemed really interesting and she answered questions about this series, and that made me think that I would really enjoy it if I picked it up, and that maybe I would bump it a bit higher up my mental wish list. So when I was out with Jean and looking for a book to treat myself with, this is what I went for. I gather it's set in a kind of alternate reality Britain. It says clairvoyance in all its forms has been decreed a criminal offence, and those who practice it are viciously punished. And it is about someone who has this clairvoyant power. So I'm really looking forward to getting into that one soon. Then the last book that's on my list that I'd like to get to in November is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I read Uprooted by Naomi Novik earlier this year and I really, really enjoyed it. I've also read a couple of books in her Temeraire series about dragons. This one is another thing along the lines of Uprooted. It's a fairy tale retelling in a way, but done with her own twists and changes, and I'm really excited to get stuck into this. And this is a book that I've borrowed again from my friend Jean, so I kind of like to read it to get it back to her. And again, this is quite a chunky book. It's quite thick there and it's quite tall, so I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I'm about to go away on holiday for a week to Wales, and there will be lots of reading time, and hopefully get through it and a couple of the other big books while I'm there. Those are all the books that I wanted to talk to you about today that I'm hoping to read in November. Because some of them are quite big, then I think that's going to keep me busy for a little while. If you've read any of these, I'd love to hear what you thought of them, and what have you got on your TBR piles for the next few weeks. I will talk to you again soon. Bye!